I'm going to show you some of our recent data in relationship to infant community deaths in a low-income region of the province of Buenos Aires in a middle-income country. So estimating RSV as a cause of death is challenging because several reasons. There is not a simple diagnosis test. There is no treatment available, therefore there is no an incentive to take nasal samples and run an PCR. Difficult to request autopsies in children. Parents usually doesn't want the autopsies are a diagnosis tool. And home mortality is important, is common in low-income countries, but the burden of RSV in community death is unknown. So this is the focus of this presentation. As Fernando previously showed to you, in this graph we can see the distribution, the mortality, the infant mortality at hospitals in Buenos Aires in our cohort of since 2011 until 2013. And we can say that neonatal deaths are the most frequent in this age group. The distribution of this group is very irregular. However, the postneonatal infants, the burden of the death at hospital are in the RSV season. LRTI is the most important cause of death in our cohort. Among LRTI-associated deaths, RSV was the most frequent pathogen that we found. In this graph, what you can see is the age distribution during the admission by severe RSV LRTI, and you can see that deaths by RSV is in red. So the distribution is more or less like some patching dots in the graph, very irregular, and it's not following the age distribution of the admission. So we got a question about this. Does the age distribution of deaths in the community resemble the RSV deaths in the hospitalized infants, or resemble the hospital admissions? And as you can see, this is community deaths, got the same pattern than admission. When we look for the community deaths in infants, we can see that the neonatal groups behaves in the opposite way. They got lower rates of deaths at home. And when we look for postneonatal deaths, what we can see is that behaves in the same way, in the same RSV season, and we can also compare with the peaks of the burden of RSV hospitalization in our cohort. So in summary, we got 2 points here. First, that we pick annual community mortality in infants overlaps with the RSV season, and the age distribution of community death run in parallel with the age distribution of hospital admission due to RSV. So we got 2 questions from here. First, can we define the role of RSV in infant mortality in the community? And the second question is, are all infants in low-income regions at the similar risk? So we wanna find if we wanna look if we have some subgroup into this poor low-income country, low-income region of our region. So this is more or less our catchment area. You can see in the top of the picture the Buenos Aires downtown. This is our catchment area in the province of Buenos Aires. So for this study, we take nasopharyngeal swabs from all community deaths in infants, which are derived to the local morgue, the judicial morgue of Lomas de Zamora. This study started in May and is ongoing. So this is our data from nasopharyngeal swabs. In red, you can see RSV. In green, rhinovirus. In blue, influenza. And in white, parainfluenza 3. So we don't know really what is the role of rhinovirus, but RSV it seems very important. So, to answer the first question, RSV was detecting 22% of all cause of home fatalities during the RSV season in this year. 47% of RSV from the all positive nasopharyngeal swabs. For the second question, we made a case control study, and we divided our variables in 3 points. First of all, we asked that where was the infant born, to see if there is a relationship with the environment. Second, we asked how healthy was the infant at birth. We want to know something about the biological status of these infants. And the third question is, how did the family care for that infant? So we want to search for social vulnerability. What we found is that between cases and controls, cases got significantly higher percentage of tin and mud houses, less social support, no running water, and more smoking at home. This is more or less where these babies live in this area. When we look for the biological status, we didn't see any difference between sex, gestational age, history of LRTI, but we found the difference between the birth weight. This is a baby. So for the last question, how did the family care for that infant? We found another interesting thing, that they got higher percentage of no social security number, in Argentina is DNI, no breastfeeding, incomplete vaccination, and no medical visit during a disease. We looked for a risk factor for sudden death, and we didn't find any difference between groups. So our risk factor, we found the risk factor in relationship to RSV mortality in community. We found that precarious houses, no breastfeeding, substandard healthcare utilization, and extreme social vulnerability are risk factor to die at home. We identify a subgroup of infants in our cohort with extreme social vulnerability. So how can RSV be a cause of death? It's related to bacterial sepsis, pneumothorax, and this is related to medical care, congenital or acquired disease, and environmental and social vulnerability. Thanks a lot.
Thanks, Mauricio. I think it's an important study. To my knowledge, it's the first study in the community setting. So if you have one question, probably we can take it and then we can discuss later on. Harish?
Thanks for the interesting presentation. It was very nice. The risk factors you show for mortality are not very different for the risk factors for severe disease or hospitalization. You've taken no breastfeeding as a risk factor. Can you clarify whether it meant that the baby was not breastfed at all from birth, or not breastfed at all from birth?
Yes.
Okay, so that's quite an interesting finding, because I think when we're looking at risk factors from other studies for hospitalization, it's usually incomplete breastfeeding or not exclusively breastfed until 4 months or 2 months. But this is a very interesting thing, that in your community you have children who have not been breastfed at all.
We got an 80% of breastfeeding in this area. However, this group is different.
Okay, thanks.
I just want to say this is a fantastic presentation. I really appreciated the work, and I think that this is the kind of study that could be done in other parts of the world and under different circumstances. And left watching the presentation thinking about what are the causes of death, actually, what are the physical causes of death. And the two things that come to mind, of course, is lack of oxygen for a child who needs oxygen for oxygen therapy. And strangely, of course, we don't have a measure of the effectiveness of providing adequate oxygen. The only one that I'm aware of is from Papua New Guinea, which included mostly pneumonia cases, but still showed a substantial change in mortality. And the other one, which your pictures demonstrate very clearly, is the role of additional and secondary bacterial infection. So I don't have a question, but I just want to congratulate you on a fantastic piece of work.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.